In this short explains video, which will form the platform for some future videos, I want to take on two main areas that were wins really from the recent budget, both for savers and for pension investors. And those are the new individual savings account and the new pension rule changes, which are going to come down the line in kind of two chunks, some more or less immediate, some a little way out in the future. So, with no more ado, what is the new individual savings account? Well, in essence, it's the old individual savings account with a few big twists. One is the amount you can invest, summarise some of those key changes in just a moment, but also much more flexibility about the way you invest and manage the account. Okay? Now bear in mind that these rule changes don't come in until the 1st of July 2014, so for the time being, the old rules apply. So what does that mean? Well, don't forget an ISA and an ISA, the new one, is a tax wrapper that you place over the top of cash and or stocks and shares stroke investments. And the idea is you protect everything within the wrapper from either income tax, if you're getting income, and or capital gains tax where that's relevant to investments. Okay? Well, that principle hasn't changed. If you want to invest in the old style ISA, you still can. From the 6th of April, the account limit rises to 11,880. 50% of that can be cash. And then what you can do from the 1st of July 2014 is to top that up to the new nicer limit. More about those limits in a moment. But besides that, from the 1st of July, you'll be able to include some things that weren't previously eligible. So short-dated debt securities, for example, under the old rules, you could only include a corporate bond if it had at least 5 years to run between the point you popped it into the ISA and its redemption or maturity date. Well, that requirement's gone, so that opens up a few more securities that can go in, on top of the usual list, by the way. The previous list of funds, securities, AIM shares and so on is still there. And bear in mind that the government's going to consult on widening the pool even further. You know, we may see peer-to-peer lending vehicles, for example, included within ISAs for the first time. So wait and see on that one. Now, in terms of the way the account's managed, no limit on the cash component. That's a big change, and I'll cover that in just a moment, summarise it. Transfers are allowed from investments to cash. That wasn't easy, indeed at all possible really under the old rules, but will be fully allowed under the new rules, as well as the other way around. And tax-free interest can be earned on cash held within an investment ISA. So basically, if you've got cash waiting to be invested, it can earn tax-free interest under the new rules. So what about those account limits, just to wrap up this short summary of the NISA change? Well, basically under the old rules, all right, and don't forget these still apply till the 1st of July 2014, you are limited to cash that's half the account total for the tax year. So from the 6th of April 2014, half of 11,880 can be invested into cash. If you want to use the whole of a stocks and shares ISA allowance, then fine, that can be right up to the account total of 11,880 under the old rules which apply till the 1st of July. That means if you want to mix and match, okay, only 50% of the account maximum can be cash. Under the new rules, the whole 15,000 annual allowance can be in cash. So for those people who've already invested, let's say, into the traditional ISA before these new rules kick in, you can simply then top up to the 15,000 limit once we get to the 1st of July. And if you want to use the NISA for investments, fine, the whole 15,000 is potentially available. All right, and that's quite a big step up in terms of the overall account total investment that can be held within a new individual savings account. More on how that's going to work in a future video. Now to the pensions changes, and these are pretty big. First thing to say is, where are they focused? Okay, well really what the Chancellor's done is to focus out on the right-hand side of this slide on the defined contribution style of pension. The defined benefit style is just worth a mention. That's where the state or a handful of small companies basically guarantee, fix your pension in relation to, say, your final or average salary while you're employed. So that basically takes the pressure off you as the recipient and puts it onto the state, stroke, your company, employer, to fund the thing to pay for your pension. And that's why they're increasingly rare, because these things put all the risk onto the person funding it. All right. Whereas with a defined contribution or money purchase plan, essentially money can go in from your employer, money can go in from you. That all gets tax relief on the way in, your marginal income tax rate, okay? The way that's that works depends on whether you're a basic or higher rate taxpayer, but I'll leave that to one side for now. But basically tax relief on the way in. Okay, so that's contributions from your employer, from you and the government. The benefit is uncertain. You basically build up a pot and then you need to decide what to do with that pot when it comes to retirement. And the size of that pot will depend on things like how long you've invested for and what sort of rates of return you're earning over the period. And it's there that the changes really take effect. Now, quick summary of your choices currently. So let's assume that you and your employer and the government via tax relief have been contributing during your working lifetime to a nice, hopefully big pension pot. You could take 25% of that straight away as a tax-free lump sum. That's always been the case. What do you do with the rest? Right, well, essentially it comes down to sort of three options, if you like. Very small pots can be pretty much taken straight away, subject to one or two tax rules. All right, then you've got the drawdown rules. So if you've got a more decent sized pot, depending on the size of it, you might be able to do completely flexible drawdown or what's called just income drawdown. And then you've got annuities. Now these in principle are useful, but people complain that the rates are pretty poor. An annuity is basically you handing over a lump sum to a life insurance company and them giving you an income stream in return. And you have to make certain decisions about whether you have it linked to inflation or not. So those are your basic three choices. And what the budget does is to say, right, let's bring in quite a bit more flexibility up here and over time down there as well. So we've got some changes hitting the small pots and drawdown side of things almost straight away, and then a change coming down the line as far as annuities is concerned too. So let's summarise those. Why change, first of all? In a nutshell, quite a lot of people don't like these existing rules. Annuity rates are very, very low. All right, the drawdown rules don't give as much flexibility as some people would like, and there's a kind of nanny state mentality, critics would say. You know, the government in the past has kind of forced you to make certain decisions about your pension, and people are saying, well, it's my money, why can't I do what I like with it? Well, the merits of that debate will roll and roll and roll. I'm sure the new rules introduce a whole lot more flexibility, but I'll leave that to one side for the moment. The government has basically said, yes, you can have a lot more freedom about the way you use that pension lump sum. Now, the result may be that more people will start saving for retirement via pensions, and that would be a good thing, obviously. So the budget's basically tried to do a couple of things. Bring in some short-term changes and introduce one quite big longer-term change. Let's take a look at those. Now, the starter, as I've called it, followed by the main course. The starter, 4 changes basically in summary. So let's look at drawdown first of all. Under the old rules, you needed a minimum secure pension income. Now, this is assuming you've taken out your 25% tax-free lump sum already. That's kind of gone. It's what you're doing with the rest of the pot. So if you've got a minimum secure pension income, all right, under the old rules of 20,000, that's now dropped to 12. You can do unlimited flexible drawdowns. So that's the ability to take chunks out of your pension pot kind of as and when you want to. That change is quite dramatic. Reducing from 20,000 to 12,000 means quite a few more people will potentially qualify for basically completely flexible drawdown. All right, now, when I say completely flexible drawdown, don't forget there are tax requirements here. You are subject to tax at your marginal income tax rate. It's not saying you can take the whole lot tax-free suddenly, but much more flexibility there. Then for those people who didn't have that kind of secure pension income, well, the capped income drawdown limit, that's the ability to basically you leave the 75% where it is and take income off it, that's been moved to 150% of government actuarial department numbers from 120. Now this all gets pretty technical pretty quickly, but let me give you a quick, slightly simplified example. Imagine I had £100,000, right? And that could be turned into a single life annuity of £5,000 per year. It can't, that's not the right number, I've made it up, £5,000 per year. What's this saying? It's saying that if you want to use your pension pot and draw income off it, under the new rules, 150% of 5,000 would be £7,500 a year coming off as income, as opposed to under the old rules 120% of 5,000, which is only £6,000 a year. So that's quite a big step up from 6,000 in my imagined example to 7,500. Okay, so you can see that's quite a big benefit too. And then the small pots rules have changed too. Now, there's a number here of 30,000, and that, some sources say, is about the average size of a pension pot held by a person in the UK. So what the Chancellor's done is to say, right, if you're 60 or over and you've got an overall pension savings below 30,000, that was 18, so there's quite a big step up. You can take it as one lump sum. All right, it's not all tax-free, but you can take it as one lump sum. So for some people, that, you know, that quite a few people, that's going to be a degree of flexibility they didn't enjoy before. And down the bottom, if you've got dribs and drabs of pensions, little pots left over from previous employment, for example, the Chancellor's helped you out there, because he said basically you can have up to 3 of them, okay, with now a total value limit of £10,000. That was only 2,000, that's gone up like by 5 times, and you can basically treat them as a lump sum that you can just take away subject to tax. So quite a bit of flexibility around the whole drawdown area and the treatment of what are called sort of smaller lump sums, or what I call smaller lump sums to avoid using the technical language. Then the main course. From April 2015, subject to consultation. And by the way, the consultation will undoubtedly come with some stings in the tail. For example, alongside this, the pensions benefit age is being reviewed. So don't be surprised if it moves up to, well, who knows, 57 rather than 55 for private pensions, but that's to be decided. But nonetheless, from April 2015, total flexibility about the way a pension is taken. So under the old rules, there's this kind of penalty applied. So for someone who went in, took their 25% tax-free lump sum out, all right, and then took the rest out as well, you could be hammered potentially for a 55% rate of tax. Well, under this new proposal, you won't be. The rest of it, if you want to go down that route, will be subject to tax at your marginal income tax rate. Now, that's not to say you have to do it, all right? Annuities do make sense in the right context for a lot of people. So, you know, headlines saying the death of annuities are probably overcooking it a wee bit, I would say, but nonetheless, total flexibility there. So there it is. A new ISA from the 1st of July 2014, an immediate short-term change to pensions to make them more flexible, and a fairly meaty change coming your way fairly shortly. More on all those changes in future videos.